Hello and welcome. My name is Melissa Galasso, and I'm excited to be with you today to talk about our newest SAS, SAS 142. SAS 142, which is audit evidence, was issued in July of 2020. Now, this is a very important SAS. It's one that has been getting a good amount of attention here because of the implications related to the growing use of technology, both by the auditee as well as the auditor. Right? Audit evidence is no longer necessarily physical paper. Everything might be electronic, or paper is turned to electronic before there's an opportunity for the auditor to look at the original, right? And then on the audit side, when we look at machine learning and artificial intelligence, right, how are those types of use of technology impacting what does audit evidence look like? So as the profession is evolving, we have to, as a response, think about what does that look like in terms of audit evidence. And so the AICPA created a task force, and they worked really hard to sort of develop this next step. So when we get into this, the goal of this SAS is really to provide some background information on what is this audit evidence. So when we think about audit evidence, we're really, this is going to explain what is audit evidence, right? So we need to think about what is sufficient, appropriate evidence, right? This is a significant professional judgment area because there isn't a right or wrong, right? This is not a check the box. And so a lot of professional judgment coming here. And so what constitutes audit evidence? And it sets out attributes of information that you're going to use to evaluate information. So we're going to talk about relevance, we're going to talk about reliability in evaluating our audit evidence. So the standard does provide a definition of audit evidence. It's information used by the auditor in arriving at the conclusions on which the auditor's opinion is based. The audit evidence is information to which audit procedures have been applied and consists of information that corroborates or contradicts assertions in the financial statements. You'll notice a focus on contradictory evidence here as well, whether that is having two procedures who give different outcomes, or having a information or an inquiry from different people giving you different results. So the standard talks a lot about the application again here, trying to come back to what does all of this really look like. Well, when we think about this, the objective of the auditor is to evaluate information to be used as audit evidence, including the results of audit procedures to inform the overall conclusion. And when we think about that, it comes in a variety of different forms. It could come as an oral piece of information, right? So a verbal response to an inquiry. It could come visually, right? So obtained through observation. And thanks to COVID-19, there is an explicit statement regarding remote observation. So you don't have to physically be present. You can do it remotely. And so we can see that explicitly stated in the audit standard. And then we also have paper in terms of our form of information, so a documentary form. And it could also even be electronic. So information or documents that are stored in electronic format, they started out as paper and then they are stored. So maybe a scanned contract, or data that is stored in an entity's IT system or obtained electronically from an external source, right? So it started and originated in a data format and has maintained that way, right? So those are all the different forms of our information. And we also get it from various sources. So they focus on the various sources of information. So obviously management can be a source of information, whether it's accounting records, but it can even be internal marketing information when we're trying to look at things related to warranties, or we're looking at certain information. It doesn't have to always be accounting. And then external information sources and other external parties, so things like external confirmations. And then obviously the auditor is going to be the creator of information, and people don't tend to think about it that way. But if you think about the analysis of industry trends, right, that's the auditor creating, a source of information, or automated tools and techniques, right? All of that is going to be part of this element. So when we think about this, I think one of the things the standard does a really good job of is forces people to, keep that in the back of your mind when we're thinking about the types of evidence. They also provide other terms. Now, while these are not in the master glossary, I will tell you these are going to have a pretty big effect here. So when we think about appropriateness, right, that is one of the key considerations here, right? So the measure of quality of audit evidence, right? So when we think about audit evidence, we want to make sure that the quality is appropriate, right? And appropriateness comes down to relevance, right? Is there a logical connection with or bearing upon the purpose? As well as reliability, right? The nature and the source of the evidence and the circumstances to which it was obtained, right? So we can dive in, and we will even further into this concept, but really when we think about this, the appropriateness, right? We talk about sufficient appropriate evidence. And when we think about the sufficiency, right, that measure of quantity, it's actually going to all interrelate, right? The measure of quantity is really impacted by the risk of material misstatement as well as the quality, right? So going back to appropriateness. So there is a lot of interrelationships there. The other element that they talk about is what we call persuasiveness. So persuasiveness is related to the auditor obtaining appropriate evidence that is sufficient for the auditor to draw the conclusion. So as you can see, sufficiency and appropriateness are interrelated, and together they impact this concept of persuasiveness. But I think it's important to note here that quantity is not solely determinative, right? More of the same type of audit evidence does not compensate for lack of appropriateness. So if it's not appropriate evidence, just getting more of it isn't going to solve it, right? So there's a lot of overlap in the considerations here. So obviously the key element is that not only do we obtain it, but we have to evaluate the information. And that involves maintaining professional skepticism, considering conscious and unconscious audit biases as a result. So when we do this, we have to take into account the relevance and the reliability of the information and whether the information corroborates or contradicts. So I think that is an important concept when we think about evaluation of audit evidence. We want to take all of these pieces into consideration. So when we start off with the relevance and the reliability, and then whether it is corroborative or contradicting. And that includes determining whether information is sufficiently precise and detailed, and then obtaining audit evidence about the accuracy and completeness of the information. So when we talk about reliability, right, we talk about the concept of accuracy, completeness, authenticity. Nothing in the standard requires us to be a document authenticity specialist. But if we have doubts about the authenticity, obviously that's something we have to consider. And then the susceptibility to management bias, right? So that will impact the reliability. Now, remember, audit evidence is cumulative. The absence of information, when we think about this, that we build on audit evidence, it's not just a single item. In fact, the absence of information is actually, potentially audit evidence, right? So if there are no sales returns, that can help support the assertions related to a warranty provision. So it's not always a positive item. And then evaluation may be enhanced by automated tools and techniques, right? So when we think about some of the work that we're going to do to determine whether this information is reliable, we're going to be able to use an enhanced evaluation. We also need to think about electronic records, right? So if something is being transformed from its original medium into an electronic format, then obviously the reliability of that information depends on the controls over that. So the auditor might have to inspect underlying originals or test the controls over the transformation and maintenance of that, right? So we just can't assume that, it's the original. We have to kind of take make sure that this all kind of goes hand in hand. The other thing to think about are data analytics here, right? So when we think about data analytics, that's another way of evaluating evidence, right? So that's the analysis of patterns, identification of anomalies, or extraction of other useful information and data underlying or related to the subject matter of an audit through analysis, modeling, or visualization. So when we think about that's going to include AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, remote observation tools, and then robotic process automation. So automated tools and techniques are going to be used to process, organize, structure, and present data in a given context to generate useful information that could be used as audit evidence. However, we don't consider it to be audit procedures. When we go back to the concept of an audit procedure, we go back to some of the same ones that we've seen historically, right? So these should look pretty familiar to you in terms of the procedures we perform in an audit. We need to consider whether the results provide a basis for concluding about sufficiency and appropriateness. And the nature of the procedure will depend on the source of the information and can range from either simple to extensive. So when we think about audit evidence, it's obtained through risk assessment, it's obtained through further audit procedures, and a particular procedure can actually have multiple characteristics and can achieve more than one objective. So you can see here inspection, obviously in examining an item, observation, including remote observation, is looking at a process or procedure. Confirmation, an external confirmation, is receiving evidence as a direct written response to the auditor from the third party, either in paper or electronic form. Recalculation consists of testing the mathematical accuracy of the information. Reperformance is the independent execution of procedures or controls by the auditor. And then analytics, again, taking evaluation of financial information through plausible relationships between financial and non-financial data. And then we know inquiry is a way of, getting information, but it alone is never enough in terms of sufficiency there. Obviously, when we're doing this, you have to think about inconsistencies and whether there were any, audit evidence obtained from one source is inconsistent with another source, or the results of a procedure is inconsistent with another procedure. You have to take that in consideration. In fact, AUC 230 requires a specific documentation, a requirement if information is going to be was inconsistent in how you dealt with it. So overall, this is expected to be effective for audits of financial statements for periods ending on or after December 15, 2022. So given the fact that SAS 134 through 140 were pushed back a year, this is going to be the following year then for those audits. So as we go through it. All right, with that, that was a quick and dirty overview of the standard. Obviously, we can go into a lot more detail, but just wanted to give you a quick and dirty view. Thank you for joining me and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye, guys.